Dr. Ben Carson's candid remarks about a traditional common sense approach to politics stole the show at President Obama's prayer breakfast last week. And Dr. Carson explained his point of view yesterday on Fox and Friends Weekend.
I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. If there was a party called the Logic Party, I would be a member of that. Because there's so many things that are ideologically driven in Washington, D.C. That coupled with the fact that we've now started a fourth branch of government known as special interest. Basically, anything that doesn't make any sense is because there's a special interest group involved. And we need to get back to a point where we're for, by, and of the people. And we need to do things that are beneficial for the people. And we've just totally gotten away from that.
He's right. But will Washington get the message? Let's talk to Donahue Peebles. He's a real estate entrepreneur and a fundraiser for President Obama. He joins us live in our New York studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
The Wall Street Journal had an editorial on Saturday. It said Ben Carson for president because of what he said at the National Prayer Breakfast. What do you think about his message where, you know, the president was just sitting 5-10 feet away, and yet he was talking about health care reform, how it's too expensive, doesn't work right now, talking about debt and taxes?
Well, I think what he's saying a lot of Americans are feeling, and that is that our government's very distracted. We get distracted on issues such as tax rates on the upper income that are really not going to have any meaningful change, but we keep getting away from real comprehensive reform. And that's reform of social services, reform of entitlements, reform of tax structure. And we're just talking about these issues but not doing anything.
One of the things that Dr. Carson was talking about, Don, was he was talking about fairness. You know, everybody should have some skin in the game. In Washington, there are a lot of people on your side who say, you know, the millionaires and billionaires, they got to pay more. But Dr. Carson was talking about, why do we punish those people? If somebody made $10 billion and they put 10% into the government, tithing, that was his connection to the prayer breakfast. He said, why do we punish him anymore? It seems like it's fair. The guy just put in $1 billion. Well,
look, I'm a big believer in upward mobility in this country. I think that's part of what made our country the great nation that we are, and we should reward success. We shouldn't penalize it. I think what's also happening out here is that this vilification of success, again, through the political process of this last election cycle, there was a lot of that going on. And I think what Dr. Carson's saying is that the country should be rewarding success. And I believe that.
Right. And Dr. Carson was talking about morality and, you know, to saddle our children and our grandchildren with this gigantic debt. That's a bad scene. And yet we've heard from the president, apparently he told John Boehner, you know, we don't have a spending problem in Washington. We got a health care problem. It costs too much. And then we heard over the weekend, Nancy Pelosi said on the Chris Wallace show, Washington doesn't have a spending problem. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. I think Washington has a tremendous spending problem, and the only way we're going to get the deficit in control is to cut spending and have comprehensive entitlement reform. It's unconscionable to leave this kind of debt to our children and grandchildren, and they won't have the same opportunity that we've had if we leave them with this extreme debt here. So we have to accept responsibility to do something about it. And I think, again, that's what Dr. Carson was saying.
Yeah, and I know you're a Democrat and you feel that way, but what about the members of your party in Congress? It just seems like, you know, Don, we love you, but we don't agree with that.
Well, I think there are many Democrats who do. If you look back at President Clinton's tenure in the White House, his fiscal policy was much more to the center.
Sure. All right. Don Peebles, we thank you very much for joining us on this busy news morning.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.